So I'm gonna dance a dance that's happened in this space or will happen in this space, and you can join me in that.
Okay.
And the time goes on.
Because we don't take it in turns, we dance at the same time, right?
Yep.
Stop now, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. Stop now, what's that sound?
Hello. Today we are going to dance with Nelia Naumanen, and I'm super excited. I did a little bit of mentoring in your last year of your BA, so I got already a flavour of some of your work with Nelly, and now I'm interested to dance with you and see where you are at this sort of point. But if people don't know who you are, how would you introduce yourself?
So hi, I'm Nelia. I'm a dancer, and I really want to call myself a dancer because it's really the action of dancing that I enjoy and that I want to do. And then sometimes I also like to write, and I did some studies in journalism and literature before I came to study dance, so I think that part stays with me also when I'm dancing. Yeah.
Yeah. And what are we going to do today?
Today we are going to do a practice called Dancing Dances and Leaving Traces.
Say that again.
Dancing Dances and Leaving Traces.
Dancing, dances, and leaving traces.
Yeah.
I love it.
Exactly. And it's quite a broad practice, or it can hold other practices inside of it maybe, which is why I kind of also consider it as a container practice somehow. But basically the idea is quite simple, and it's in two parts. So first you dance a dance, and then you leave a trace of it. Simple. And I think this comes from feeling a bit lonely in the studio sometimes, and then wanting to be more aware of the fact that other people also go to these places and dance in these places, but just during other times, and then I want to be more aware of that when I do my dancing.
So say it again. So we're going to dance a dance, and that's the part one, and then we leave a trace.
Yes.
Do they repeat, or is it always in that order?
They can repeat, but usually I do them once and in this order.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe.
And so we're somehow trying to capture the traces that the dance leaves.
Yeah, in a way. Yeah.
And the traces, how do you capture them? Like, it's in writing?
Yes, the traces happen in writing, but the writing here can be quite broadly understood, but something you do with a pen. And I often, or I all the time actually write, but then I want to keep it open for other people if writing is not your thing.
Great. So for people at home, how, like, they should have some paper and pens maybe, and somewhere they could probably dance anywhere because there's traces anywhere.
Exactly.
And then how long do you normally do it for? As long as you need, I suppose. But
yeah, exactly. But maybe for today, like 10 minutes of dancing, 10 minutes of writing would be nice.
Awesome.
Yeah. And actually, maybe I want to correct you a bit, because you don't necessarily need paper. The idea with leaving traces is that you leave them in the space. So, for example, I usually write on the whiteboards, but depending on how rebel you are, maybe you can write on the walls, or you can have a note-it or like post-it note that you write on and leave. And
so it's a little bit of a graffiti.
Yeah, exactly, in a way.
Great. And do you do this outside sometimes?
I still haven't done that, but I really want to do it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think this practice could really fit outside world.
Yeah. Okay, so there's an invitation to that. And there's a book that maybe I can upload with the notes online.
So this practice does exist as a zine also. which you can read and which gives maybe a clear explanation of what it is.
It's really pretty. It's like it's very much a DIY, do-it-yourself, punk aesthetic zine, both with the thread and the cut and paste and glue. It's really, I highly recommend people look at least the PDF if they don't get the opportunity to see it in real life. Cool. Then great. So we will pause then and then go and dance, and we'll come back and reflect. Awesome.
So I'm gonna dance a dance that's happened in this space or will happen in this space, and you can join me in that.
Okay.
And the time goes on.
Because we don't take it in turns, we dance at the same time, right?
Yeah.
Stop now, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. Stop now, what's that sound?
Okay, we're back.
Yes.
That was amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. How was it?
For me, it was really like one of the things that came up was how sometimes I appreciate my body more than other times, and I really had this sense of loving my feet, which is funny because when we were writing on different whiteboards around the building and different places, and also making our reflections somehow be seen and stuff. The last thing I landed on was that my feet were smiling at me, which, it's interesting how we can have different perspectives of ourselves at different moments, and there's something nice about sharing those inner thoughts with people who you don't know when they're going to see it or if they're going to see it and how they're going to see it and how they're going to interpret it and meet with their feelings for themselves at that moment. Yeah. How about for you?
Yeah. I mean, now actually when I was writing my trace, I was doing it outside of the studio on one of these glass doors in the school, and people were passing by as I was writing the trace. So actually the trace met people immediately, and it's interesting what happens because I was writing on this glass door with the whiteboard marker, which means that you can easily just like take it off. It's nothing super revolutionary or disruptive in that way, but people were still like, oh, what are you doing? That's wow, that's so exciting.
You can write on the door.
Yeah, exactly. And that's something I'm really interested in, like how such a small and I don't know, gentle and kind action can feel also a bit
Rebellious.
Disruptive and rebellious. Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, and also like how do we support these emotions? I don't know. For me, it was like really traces of feelings. Like especially in the dancing, I was really aware of like the traces of the studio. So when I was in the corner, I was like, God, that feeling of waiting in the corner to dance from the corner across the room, or standing in the middle of the room waiting for your count to start a phrase and stuff, and like those emotions and feelings of tension and excitement and pull and different things and different qualities of life, and like where I was when I was 16 and so on. It's crazy that we feel scared or like intrusive to share them, like to leave a trace, when dance studios are these like clean spaces and
exactly,
like leave it as you found it type thing, right?
Exactly. And I think that's something I want to get a bit rid of, or I want to be aware that no, actually there was someone here before and there will be someone after me. And now when I was dancing, I was very busy with the marks on the floor, because at the first sight you see like maybe 5 of them, but when you start to look, there are so many. And then those are only the marks on the floor, but if you imagine that there would also be marks on the air, like this space is so full of things.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that's really exciting.
And I bled on the floor here, like on Tuesday.
Yeah.
So like, and I'm pretty sure I cleaned it up quite well, but I had to think of like even the blood cells. Like there are parts of people
Yeah.
on the floor or in the walls, and the walls have this soundproofing sort of material on it, so they are dirty. Like they're not perfectly white or clean. Like so. There is a sense of like people's sweat and bodies are leaving traces, but it occurred to me, if everyone did this, what would it look like, or what would it feel like to have everybody's words and reflections of their dancing all over the building, on the walls and on the doors and in the corridors and stuff. It's really beautiful as like a thought experiment.
Yeah.
And then you showed me actually an old trace from when you did this last on the fridge.
Yeah, exactly. Because as I said before, I did this with my class last spring. So then people actually left traces back then all around the school. And there is still one trace on the fridge, which is now like half of the words are gone. So the meaning of it is a bit different nowadays, but it's still there. And I think that's also one of the very nice things with this practice, is that you can go back to the traces that you left and see how they change, or if they are still there. Sometimes someone takes them away very soon. Sometimes they stay in places much longer than you maybe expect. Sometimes someone might even answer your trace.
So actually we discovered that Nelia had left a trace on one of the whiteboards in the corridor here at Escohort, and I'd seen it maybe like a year ago.
Yeah.
It must be a long time ago, and I had written a response, and so the trace says something like, "I see the sky." It's like you're describing your morning, maybe, or something. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm describing one Sunday here, being a bit stuck with my work, and then just writing a very emo teenager poem about it, which I'm a bit ashamed to tell now that it's mine. But,
I'm sorry. Oh God,
it's okay. I think it's funny.
But then I saw it and I was like, oh, this is such a beautiful trace, or it's a beautiful little way to intervene into. Often these boards are used for like promotion and very like clarified thoughts and stuff, and I was like, well, I'll share what I'm doing right now, and I think I put a date and a time, and
I think you followed the format of my trace kind of, but with different words.
So it's funny that then we meet after like having you're right, that these traces, they do have conversations. And I think something that it speaks to me about is how often in dance we work towards performance being the object, and as a dancer, that means that often our authorial power is sort of owned then by the choreographer, and along the way, all these other traces and stuff, they don't get a space or a place really to land, because the performance or the choreography is so valued above all the other values that come out of dancing and creating and stuff. And I suppose that's why you wrote the zine in the first place?
Yeah, I think so. And then, of course, it's this... Like, I'm not inventing anything new. Many people have tried to turn dancing into something concrete afterwards, so like somehow try to trace it. So
other than a performance.
Maybe. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm just hopping onto that lineage, maybe.
Yeah. But there's something very gentle about it, and yet also provocative, and I think it's that edge that's really interesting for me, like that we're there's no like specific need to reflect in a way which is like structured, you know, like today I did, I mean, you could do that, right? But there's something that it's just reflect, but then put it out in the world somehow, so others might pass upon it, or
Exactly.
to leave it as a trace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I also somehow like to keep it a bit, how to say, not so clear, the connection between the dance I just did and the trace that I leave, so that it doesn't need to be like one-to-one or one-on-one. That when you leave the trace, you know exactly what kind of dance I did, or the dance I did leads to exactly some kind of trace, but that there can be some poetic translation between those somehow, which is also enjoyable to me.
I mean, I find in like when I started, I'm like, I don't know what to write, like, and then I find in the writing, I'm like, oh wait, I've got this and this and this and this, and like ideas come up, and they speak to one another, and these traces exist in these studios. Like people have notes on the board and stuff, so there is a format. Like you're not inventing anything, like you say, but you're sort of maybe pointing our attention to like how do we leave little traces for others when we have danced in a space. Like,
Exactly.
Considering maybe like what are the marks we left on the floor, which are ours, or in the air, or on the bar. Whatever.
Yeah, very much. And then I think also this idea of leaving traces interests me also outside of dance somehow, or how to say this? It feels like no, I'm losing my my thoughts.
No, that's okay. But it's true, like how do we exist almost, like, but how is the dancing for you today? Like, because you say you always do it this way round, but I did feel like knowing that I was going to trace, I was really aware of like, okay, what does the music do to you? What does the space, what does my presence do to you? Are we like dancing together? And you said, oh, I'm going to start with this dance I know. And I was like, oh, are you still doing the dance? And what does it bring for you and stuff? Yeah, so can you speak to that?
About how the dancing was?
Yeah.
Well, like I said, I was really busy with the marks on the floor, and then those being also somehow in the air. And then because we are in this Studio 7 at Brynällvägen 58, it is a studio that I have been before many times. So then as I was moving in the space, I also suddenly found myself in a dance that I have danced here before. And those somehow became part of the dance of today. And then sometimes I saw you doing things, and because I was dancing dances that will happen or have happened, sometimes I did something you have done just like some seconds ago, which was also fun. Oh yeah, then there was some marks on the whiteboard about what I imagine has been a dance class with like a picture of a body and then some directions like up and down, right and left. And then I was trying to imagine how that has looked like before when it has been danced out. Yeah.
I was really struck by how much there was in the room, like, and how much there is in like what will happen and what has happened, like, and because I was really aware of like movement, and that's why I wrote about movement. I was like, oh, I'm moving a lot, like,
yeah,
which was really exciting to feel how generative the practice was, like, and how generative the task was. Like you say, like just imagining like what are you doing, what's the board doing, what's the marks on the floor telling me, what will my marks tell me, what will, and like, yeah, what traces will this movement leave and stuff. yeah, super amazing, so cool. And do you have do you have a plan for this practice, or like how will you continue, or is it just something that's in your world?
I think I do want to continue with this practice also because now it is quite broad, and I feel like I want to make it more clear and a bit more concise somehow to be able to host this as a workshop again for different kind of people. And then there is a part of me that is interested in also somehow turning this into a performance. But I think sharing this practice with people is what I'm most interested in, and whether it's in the form of a workshop or a performance or making this zine again, because as I told you before, the zine that we're now using, it's made in one night, in the middle of the night. So I would like to make it again a bit more clear, even though this version is also cute, but I think I have more thoughts around the practice now than when I did this. So there is a lot of interest in me with continuing in this. And, yeah.
In like, because it is relating to writing and traces, and you mentioned that you had studied journalism, or you'd been a journalist. Like, how does it relate to that practice?
Good question. I never worked as a journalist. I have
Sorry.
I have done communications, but that's a different thing. I think one way it relates is that I just like to write. I think that's the way I somehow tell about myself to the world, or share myself to the world.
I'm thinking about how emotions are used in telling or conveying a story, and different words have different emotions attached to them, like in weight. So if we describe an event as magic, it gives a sense of hope, and but if we describe it as tragic, we have a very different emotional connection. And like, so, and I'm saying this like I know, but I imagine like all words have like some quality, like emotional quality of it. I'm just thinking about Sara Ahmed. She has a book where she speaks about how emotions create our borders in the world, in a way. Like, I'm really making sort of big hand-waving gestures around what she wrote, but yeah, there's an element of, maybe it's not poetic, but we're talking about poetic, but like emotional weight of how we understand the world and recognize ourselves in it and stuff. And I feel like, yeah, maybe you're touching on something there. I brought it up earlier, the emotions of it.
Yeah.
But that's for me.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't have any emotions in this dance.
Oh, I do have a lot of emotions. I think this whole practice started from emotions.
Good. I was worried for a minute that I was like...
No, totally. This is so much about letting my emotions out.
It's beautiful. It's a really beautiful practice, and there's something about the combination of being with the concept of traces and how they are experienced and left, and how they exist, maybe. It's really magical, and I feel very emotional after this little dance.
Nice.
I hope that we can do it again. Maybe you can come back when you've done the workshop a few more times, and we do the same practice, or we do a different practice.
Yeah.
And continue this conversation.
Would be super nice.
Yeah, but and if people want to follow you elsewhere, how would you suggest they do that?
Unfortunately, I don't have a web page at the moment, but if you want to contact me, maybe my Instagram is good, so Nelia Naumanen, my name. Yeah, and also we have been talking about this workshop or this practice existing as a zine. So if you want that also as a physical version of it, you can send me a message on Instagram. You can slide into my DM and I can make you one.
Yeah, and also we'll leave the PDF maybe in the link below. And and you're super approachable. I'm really privileged that you let me join you and dance with you. So thank you so much.
Thanks for inviting me. Really nice to dance with you. So I'm gonna dance a dance that's happened in this space or will happen in this space, and you can join me in that.
Okay.
And the time goes on.
Because we don't take it in turns, we dance at the same time, right?
Yep.
Stop now, what's that sound? Everybody look what's